Start the video, I just want to say sorry I haven't uploaded it in a while. I just been really busy with like school and other stuff. Uh yeah. So sorry about that, but here's a video to make up for it. Okay. Pro League Rainbow Six players, the best of the best, and a source of a bit of controversy in the Siege community today. But I'm not going over whether Siege should be geared towards pro players or whether it should take away defender utility or anything like that. I'll leave all that to Get Flanked. No, by the way, check out his channel. No, today I did the unthinkable. I watched an entire Pro League Rainbow Six match. It was quite an experience. Seeing players that have Siege boiled down to a science was so foreign to me. The way they play the game is just so different than the way that the rest of us play. So I started thinking to myself, hey, if these guys are so good at the game, maybe we should try and imitate that. Then maybe we'll get better at the game? Huh? Hell, maybe I'll be able to get out of copper. It's a sad life I live. Anyway, with that long-winded intro aside, today's video is about 7 things that pro Rainbow Six players do that you should probably be imitating or trying to do too. The first thing I've seen these gods among men do differently from your average player is that they don't need to constantly reload. Most of us shoot about half our mag, retreat to cover, and reload. The professionals, on the other hand, have 30 bullets in their mag, so damn well they're going to use all 30 bullets before they reload. When the average players reload, they're putting themselves in a vulnerable position every time they do so. Pro players realize that it takes about 5 bullets max, if they aren't being shot through a wall, to kill a player. Seeing as though you'll probably miss a couple shots since you're not a pro player, let's say that it'll take about 10 shots to kill your OP4. This means that with a 30-round mag, you can conceivably take out most of the enemy team. Other reasons that pro players do this is because I mentioned earlier, reloading puts you in a vulnerable position. Them, being at the pro level, are much more susceptible to being shot at the back randomly while reloading. While this isn't a huge concern at lower levels, it's really important the more coordinated your teams get. And the more coordinated your teams get, the smaller the margin of error. And the smaller the margin of error, the more massive each risk is. Another reason that they don't reload often is that they will usually have been trying to hold an angle, and the only reason you would stop shooting is either if you kill the target or to get a rotate to another angle. To minimize downtime, they'll often just not reload. However, it is okay to reload, A, if you've killed the enemy and are making a retreat, or B, if you're running low on bullets, about 0 to 6, or C, if you're currently disengaged from combat or roaming. Okay, on to the second thing. The second thing that pro players do differently from us normies is that they create a ton of rotate holes. While yes, rotate holes are fairly common, even down here in the lower ranks, there's usually just one, and it's in between objectives. In pro games, however, I saw that defenders create around 5 or 6 on average. Now I can see the usefulness of this and why us filthy casuals wouldn't think of this. The reason that it's such a good idea is that it doesn't limit their movement to the pre-built walls and windows. The reason that all of us hadn't thought of this is because of a simple risk-reward process in our brains. Most of us try to reinforce everything because it helps keep the enemy out of the objective. And that's what you want to do as defenders. But you know what's the best way to keep them out? Killing them, of course. You know what's the best way to kill them, right? If you said staying alive, then you're right. And that's just what these rotates do. They allow you to move around, take alternate angles without having to expose yourself to enemy fire. Tip number 3 is don't be afraid to use utility. I saw quite a few times attackers throwing in smokes or shooting in Zofia impact nades just to burn out the enemy Jaeger's ADS. If you wait till the perfect moment to use the flash, frag, or concussion nade, you might end up dying without having used it at all. This is effectively wasting it, waiting for that perfect moment that would never have arrived. It's more useful to waste less important projectiles like smokes so that the ones important, like frags and flashes, don't suffer. Because Siege is in a very forgiving game, intel is your best weapon. About 99% of the time in Siege, the player with the better intel is the one that will win. This brings us to point number 4, droning. Yeah, those little pests that you have to deal with during the prep phase, that's what we're talking about here. Now, you might not know this, but the reason Ubisoft gives attackers 2 drones is that they can use their drones to scout ahead and gather, wait for it, intel. Now, another thing that these pro players did with these drones was interesting, though. The drones would go find objective, but once they found it, they would all back out. This is so that attackers could put them in advantageous positions to watch places where they were going to enter. But really, if you drone before rushing into a room, you are much more likely to survive and get those juicy frags. Moving on to number 5, pro players are often seen holding incredibly small angles that have no counter except if you walk up behind them and take them by surprise. Take this angle, for example, on bank. Just look at it for a solid second. Unless you know exactly where I am and come up and walk behind me, you're not going to be able to come through here. Either my team is doing their job and covering the other exits, or if they fail at that, unless you're Caveira, you won't be able to sneak up on the person without catching their attention. And these pro players do this multiple times per match, effectively trapping their opponent in whatever spot they were in. Now this does rely a lot on aim and even more on reaction time, so not everyone will be able to kill the Jaeger through the angle that's 2.5 pixels wide. Another thing that these pro players do a lot is 6, using vertical gameplay. So what is vertical gameplay? Well, vertical gameplay is when you use the destructible floors and ceilings to shoot your target from above or below. The most common way to do this is to open a hatch and then use that to look over the next area. Pro players take this to the next level, and instead of just destroying the hatches, they will destroy the floors upon which the enemies walk and shoot them from underneath. Or above, it really depends. They will usually do this via a breach charge or impact nade and occasionally a nitro cell, but it's frowned upon. Now, the reason that most of us don't do this is because 1, it doesn't really come to mind for most people, and 2, there's usually metal beams in the floors that block the bullets, and a lot of us have some pretty garbage aim. Okay, finally, the 7th and final way that pro players play differently than your average player is that they will usually tend to crouch spam. Kind of a lot. You will usually see this when an attacker is entering a room so that it doesn't make his head an easy target. While most of us normies and casual players see it as a gesture of friendship, these highly elite pro players have turned this friendly gesture into a highly advantageous combat strategy. Or they just have enough common sense to realize that a moving target is harder to hit. Yeah, probably that. Anyways, those were 7 things that pro players do that will help you in Siege. 2 quick things that I want to say before I let you all go. First is, doing things may help you out. It's imperative that you develop good aim and game sense. Mind games and underused tactics will only get you so far. You need skill to get the rest of the way. Secondly, I would highly recommend that all of you watch at least one professional game. Just watching it for 30 minutes, I got all of these tricks and a couple others, which I'm saving for another video, because I'm too tired to work anymore on this script, and I think I have another 8 that I got from watching this one game. One of the best ways to learn new things and improve upon existing knowledge is through imitation, so try doing some of these things in your games. You probably won't, but hey, it's worth a try, isn't it? Anyways, this has been fun. I'll see all of you guys later. Dr. Trey, signing off.